On the morning of May 18, 1927, children walked into school expecting a normal day. Teachers prepared lessons, parents went to work, students filled the classrooms of the Bath Consolidated School in rural Michigan. Then the school exploded. Walls collapsed instantly. Glass shattered across the town. Smoke and debris filled the air. And within seconds, one of the deadliest school disasters in American history had begun. Parents ran toward the building in panic. Teachers and neighbors searched through rubble with their bare hands. Children were trapped beneath collapsed walls and broken beams. And the quiet farming community suddenly found itself facing unimaginable tragedy. This is the story of the Bath school disaster, a devastating event that shocked America in 1927 and remains the deadliest school disaster in US history. To understand how this happened, you first have to understand Bath Township. Bath was a small farming community near Lansing, Michigan. Life there was quiet and centered around agriculture. Like many communities during the 1920s, local leaders wanted better educational opportunities for children living in rural areas. So a new consolidated school was built to serve students from nearby farms and communities. The Bath Consolidated School opened in the mid-1920s. Many residents supported the project, but not everyone agreed with the rising taxes needed to pay for it. Among those who became increasingly angry was a local farmer named Andrew Kehoe. Neighbors later described Kehoe as intelligent and skilled with machinery, but also difficult, bitter, and increasingly withdrawn as financial pressure grew around him. His farm struggled financially. Mortgage debt created constant stress, and he reportedly blamed local taxes and the school district for many of his problems. At the same time, his wife Nellie suffered from a long-term illness, creating additional emotional and financial strain. Still, few people imagined what Kehoe was secretly planning. Over time, he quietly purchased explosives and incendiary materials. During the 1920s, farmers often used explosives for agricultural work, like removing tree stumps, so his purchases did not immediately attract suspicion. But behind the scenes, Kehoe had begun preparing for something catastrophic. Investigators later discovered he had secretly placed explosives beneath parts of the Bath Consolidated School over a long period of time. Because of his connection to the school board and maintenance work around the property, he was able to move through areas of the building without raising major concern. The plan was carefully hidden, and almost nobody suspected anything. Then came the morning of May 18, 1927. Earlier that day, Kehoe killed his wife at their farm, although investigators later reconstructed parts of the timeline after the disaster. He also set sections of the farm on fire. Smoke rising from the property attracted attention from neighbors and local residents. But while people focused on the fire at the farm, something even worse was about to happen at the school. At approximately 8:45 a.m., the north wing of the Bath Consolidated School exploded. The blast was devastating. Part of the building collapsed almost instantly. Bricks, wood, glass, and debris flew through the air. The explosion could be heard miles away, and in seconds, classrooms disappeared beneath smoke and rubble. Panic spread across the community. Parents rushed toward the school. Teachers, neighbors, and rescue workers desperately searched through the debris looking for survivors. Farmers brought tools from nearby fields. Doctors and nurses rushed to the scene. People clawed through rubble with their bare hands, trying to reach trapped children. The entire town mobilized almost immediately, but the destruction was enormous. And then the situation became even worse. As rescue operations continued, Andrew Kehoe drove his truck toward the school. Inside the vehicle were additional explosives and metal debris designed to increase the damage. Witnesses later said Kehoe called over the school superintendent, Emery Hike. Moments later, the truck exploded. The blast killed Kehoe, Superintendent Hike, and several others nearby. Smoke and chaos spread across the disaster scene once again. The community was now dealing with collapsing structures, fires, injuries, and multiple explosions, all at the same time. When rescue operations finally ended, the scale of the tragedy became clear. A total of 45 people were killed, including 38 children. Dozens more were injured. The Bath School disaster became the deadliest school tragedy in American history. And investigators soon uncovered something even more horrifying. Not all of the explosives hidden inside the school had detonated. Authorities discovered hundreds of additional pounds of explosives beneath another section of the building that had failed to explode. If the entire plan had worked as intended, the death toll could have been even higher. The discovery shocked investigators and the public. It revealed that the disaster had been carefully planned over a long period of time. This was not a sudden act of violence. It had been prepared in secret. Investigators later searched Kehoe's farm and uncovered more evidence connected to the attack. Among the ruins, authorities reportedly found a sign left behind by Kehoe that read, "Criminals are made, not born." The message disturbed people across the country. Americans struggled to understand how someone could target a school filled with children. Newspapers nationwide covered the tragedy. The country was shocked. At the time, disasters on this scale were extremely rare and deeply difficult for the public to process. The event also exposed how vulnerable schools could be during an era with far fewer security measures and emergency response systems than exist today. But unlike many later tragedies in American history, the Bath School disaster slowly faded from national memory over time. Part of the reason may be that it happened in a small rural town rather than a major city. Another reason is that the disaster occurred decades before modern television coverage and non-stop national media cycles. Yet, for the people of Bath Township, the tragedy was never forgotten. The community lost an entire generation of children in a single morning. Families were shattered, teachers and students disappeared within seconds, and the emotional scars remained for decades. In the years after the disaster, the school was rebuilt. Memorials were created to honor the victims. Survivors and family members carried the memory of what happened throughout their lives. Today, historians still study the Bath School disaster as one of the darkest events in American educational history, not only because of the scale of the tragedy, but because of the level of planning involved. The story also raises difficult questions about anger, isolation, financial collapse, and violence. Andrew Kehoe became consumed by resentment and personal despair, and instead of seeking help or support, he chose destruction. What makes the story especially haunting is how ordinary the morning seemed before everything changed. Children arrived expecting classes. Teachers prepared lessons. Parents said goodbye to their sons and daughters without knowing it would be the last time. And then, within seconds, an entire community was shattered. Today, many Americans have never heard of the Bath School disaster. But in 1927, a quiet Michigan town experienced the deadliest school tragedy in American history. And for the families who lived through it, the memory never disappeared. The Bath School disaster remains one of the darkest and most painful chapters in American history. A tragedy planned in secret, a community destroyed in seconds, and a disaster many Americans today barely remember. If you want more hidden American history they never taught in school, subscribe for the next story.